the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima and Carlo. On today's show we will react to the weekend Serie A action, with Napoli now being top of Serie A after yet another victory. Juventus and Dusan Vlahovic end their goal droughts with a 3-0 win over Genoa. Inter respond to the derby loss by beating Udinese, with Lautaro and Martinez returning among the goals. Milan follow up their derby win with another impressive victory, 3-0 over Lecce. Atalanta endure another difficult week, but Lazio enjoy the perfect week as their new signings all shine. Roma, meanwhile, get out of jail against Venezia. We will also preview this week's Champions League matches, Champions League match day 2, and we'll have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month, plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify. We'll provide a link in the description. Same price, same terms. For all of you that do listen on Spotify, Apple, and iTunes podcasts, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow and a like. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube. All of that really helps us grow and do more quality content for you guys. Okay, let's get into today's show. So we'll start off with Napoli, the Sunday evening match. Napoli go top of Serie A, 6 weeks in this season, and there's been a different leader of Serie A every single week. This time it's Napoli's turn, who go top after a 2-0 win. Goals from Politano and Kvaratskhelia. It's all looking very positive for Napoli. Since losing that opening game against Verona, they've now gone 6 unbeaten in all competitions. They've won 5 of them. They've scored 16. They've let in 1. It's all looking, well, it's looking rather ominous, isn't it, Nima?
It is. And what I find the most interesting is Antonio Conte, playing some back four version, which he started against Juve unexpectedly, and it's very interesting that his formation starts off with a back four, kind of transitions to a back three, of course, like most formations do. But it's very, very interesting to see that he's going with a back three, even though he didn't need to because they were already winning games with a back three. But the way that they manage to or continue to put out impressive performances, and they're able to, revert to a back three. Because let's remember when Mazzocchi and Spinazzola came on, they kind of played a 3-4-2-1, and that is very interesting because for many things that Antonio Conte has been criticized for is that maybe sometimes, if you remember when he was at Inter, that famous exchange with Sky about what's plan B, and he said, I'm not going to tell you, and it was evident he had no plan B. But here he does have a plan B. He has a plan A and he has a plan B, and he's implementing both, and they both work. And Napoli look really, really solid. And I can't say I'm surprised, because in our Serie A preview I had a 3-horse race between Juve, Inter and Napoli. And I think this is going to go down to the wire. I still don't think Milan are going to be involved as we head into the new year, or after the new year when we're in February, March. I think it's these 3 teams. And Napoli are, with one game that they play every week, despite injuries, will have a squad that is deep enough to handle that. But it's still very, very early days. I always like to reference the famous quote from Lippi back in 97, 98, 98, 99, where he was talking about how, well, the Serie A doesn't really start until match day 10 and onwards. These are all preliminary rounds. And he's kind of right about that. But what you can deduce from these preliminary rounds is certain where we're headed. And when I see between Napoli in first and Inter in fourth, 2 points separating them, Napoli and Juventus impressed the most. Juventus barely concede shots, let alone goals. Napoli are scoring and look very solid. Milan and Inter started off, well, we've got to be honest, they started off rather poorly. They still have defensive issues, although Milan have not conceded for against this last weekend against Lecce, and Inter conceded 2, but still managed to win and turn the page. It is interesting. It's going to be a tight Serie A. I don't think anyone's going to run away with it. Like I said, I think we're going to have a 3-horse race between Milan, Juve, and Napoli, and Napoli are going to be in the wire. And it's a toss-up for me between out of Napoli, Juve, and Milan. Napoli, Juve.
We do have a segment on that, like asking who we think is going to win. So let's just park that for now. But if we talk about just this game itself, I mean, I think that it was a dominant performance from Napoli. Apart from a little bit in the second half where Monza kind of had a good little period. Apart from that, it was a very easy win. Great goal from Politano. Not good defending. The 1-2 with Lukaku. Good finish from Kvara for the second goal. I think Lukaku's gone a little bit off the boil the last few weeks, but Conte said this after the game that even when he isn't playing well under Conte, he's always contributing to the team. Last week, he didn't play well against Juventus. He got dominated by Bremer, but he was still chasing back, winning the ball, occupying defenders, and he got did the 1-2 with Politano as well for that goal. And but I think McTominay played well in this game. He was very, very involved. Conte spoke very glowingly of him before the game, saying that he has a lot of goals in him and that he thinks that he's going to get quite a few goals. And if you watch in this game, even though he didn't score, you can see why he's saying that. I mean,
he wasn't far off, was he?
No, but he was getting into the goal-scoring opposition. I mean, he had a header that just went wide.
Yeah.
He had another good chance, which he probably should have done better with, but he's getting in the positions. But he's also got different ways of scoring. Like, he's very, very good in the air. He's got a good shot. He's a pretty good finisher. And like Conte says, he has goals in him. So he's gonna contribute goals. And I think, like as you said, the fact that Napoli are also a little bit more adaptable now than the usual Antonio Conte, where he kind of had one way of playing with a back three, and now he has two.
But the thing
systems
is, he's playing his calcio verticale, but he's doing it with 2 formations, and that's something that we've never really seen him kind of do. I mean, at Inter, the last 6 months, it was switching the transition between a 3-5-2 to a 4-2-4 when attacking, but that's transition. Here, he can start off from a back four, transition to a 3-4-2-1 whilst attacking, transition to a 4-2-4. It's very, very fluid, and it's looking very fluid very early on, which everyone else in the Serie A should be worried about. Usually Conte's teams hit form. They start off good, but then there's a little bit of rust, and then they tend to hit their form in February, March onwards. Here, it just looks good from day one, and everything just seems to fall in place. There's not that kind of rustiness when in transition and when trying to find their roles. And one thing that I did notice is it was very important for Kvara to score, because I think he's going to be the main goal scorer. Even though they've got Lukaku, I'm not too worried about him falling off. I think the main person who's going to score is Kvara. He's going to make sure that he finds himself centrally in good goal scoring positions with a lot of time and space to finish. And it was important for Kvara to get that goal.
Yeah, he's going to be. I think he's going to have a great season, as we said before. Monza, though, you have to worry about them. I mean, they're in the relegation zone. They still have no wins this season, I believe. No wins. So they're one of only 2 teams that haven't won in Serie A this season. Cagliari's the other, although they play on Monday evening, so they could still get a win. But yeah, it does look a little bit concerning also for Nesta. As well, we were worried a bit about him before the season. Like, he was a bit of a not a strange choice, but a little bit. Obviously, there's the relationship there from Milan between Galliani and Nesta, and that obviously played a part in his appointment as well. And they just, yeah, they look a little bit short at the moment. They don't look like they can really hurt opponents. And even when they got the draw against Inter, which was a great result, that was like their only shot of the whole game. They just don't look like they can threaten opponents.
No, they don't, and they look very, very. They look a bit strange when they're trying to build up. It doesn't feel natural when they play. It feels very fragmented, everything. They don't feel like a cohesive unit. They feel like three different compartments trying to work together. And when that happens, usually I worry for Nesta. I wonder if by the time we're recording this pod next week, if he's still with a job. Or at the very latest after the international break. I really wonder that, because it's not just the result, it's how they're losing as well. And they just didn't have a prayer in this game. And they shouldn't have a prayer. It's Napoli away. But they shouldn't look this bad. And I really think that Nesta could be next on the chopping board.
Yeah, I mean, they've got Roma next, but then after that, they have two relegation opponents against who have they got after? They've got Verona away, and then they have Venezia at home. So I think maybe those two, he might get the chance with those two. And if he doesn't get at least a win in one of those two games, then I think we could potentially see him getting replaced. Let's move
And
on
the thing
to.
is, though, I'm not so sure he's got that much time, because there's only one game left before the international break,
Well,
and
yeah,
that's
they could,
Roma.
but they could make that decision.
I think they could make that decision then. I don't think they're going to wait. Or if they did, it would be very un-Galliani-like, in the sense that he usually gets these decisions right, in the sense that he knows the timing of changing. And I think it would be very weird to give him the international break and then after Verona, do you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where you want to be proactive rather than reactive.
Possibly, but then they do have obviously the relationship from Milan, which might buy him a little bit more
More
time.
time, yeah.
So we'll
Yeah,
see. Let's move
obviously.
on to Juventus though, who end their sequence of goalless draws, and they end their goal drought 5.5 hours without scoring. And in the first half of this game against Genoa, which was played behind closed doors because of all the awful trouble in the Coppa Italia, between the Coppa Italia match in midweek between Genoa and Sampdoria at the derby. It looked like more of the same in the first half. Check this XG out for the first half. 0.04 XG in the first half. I mean, Allegri must have been grinning watching
Well,
that.
I mean, I just want to say that I think that Cristiano Giuntoli went into the App Store and he went into the Allegri app and he updated it and got Allegri 2.0 in Thiago Motta. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's in the sense that they are very, very solid, Juve. You can make fun of the expected goals in the first half, which was an absolute joke for both teams. But if you still look throughout the game, Juve barely concede anything. And he builds from the back. And again, in the Serie A, that will pay dividends. That's just how this league is. If you have a stable, solid defense and you don't concede anything, with the quality you have up front, that Juve absolutely do have, and I don't want to say that Thiago Motta is Allegri, because he's not. He absolutely has an attacking identity, a far more modern approach, hence Allegri 2.0. So this is hilarious to me, that everyone who hated Allegri are essentially watching the updated Allegri app. This is Allegri 2.0.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't like the comparisons between the two. I think there's no comparison at all other than they're both good defensively. I think they're completely different coaches. I don't get the comparison at all. I think it's ridiculous. But I mean, what
No,
we
the
can say.
pragmatism is there. The way that both are very pragmatic. I mean, if you were to put a face on pragmatism in football, it would be Max Allegri the last 20 years. He doesn't mess about it. It's not about formations or who, it's about getting a
Yeah, there's
result. It's about,
pragmatism in not wanting to concede, but I mean, it'd be like comparing Arteta to Allegri. Like, you just wouldn't do it. I mean, Arteta's a
I don't think
ridiculous.
you can compare Arteta
Well,
and Motta.
Arteta and Motta are very similar managers. They're both ridiculously pragmatic. They don't overcommit. They don't over throw men forward too much. They like to keep the ball and protect it that way. And I think they're very similar. I think Arteta and Motta are very, very similar managers. in that sense. But I mean, I don't get the
I don't think
comparison.
tactically in the final third they are. I think maybe defensively in the defensive phase they are. But I think Arteta is far more Pep than Thiago Motta is Pep. Thiago Motta for me is much more careful in the sense that he likes to work his way into games. And that is where I kind of see more comparisons to Allegri. But it is kind of funny that, and that's why I say that, half in jest, that Giuntoli went into App Store and hit update on the Allegri app.
I mean, the Juventus's this defensive record this season it's bordering on the insane now. 6 games, 0 goals conceded, which is a new record in the 3 points era in Serie A, to go 6 games without a goal. But it's like you said, it's not even that they haven't conceded; they barely conceded a chance in those 6 games. I mean, Genoa's first shot of any kind, I noted this down as I was watching it. Genoa's first shot of any kind on or off target was in the 80th minute.
I mean, that just tells you everything, doesn't it? I mean, at that point, the game was over because, they were 2-0 up, and it was just, playing off the last 10 minutes. And if you concede your first shot like that in the 80th minute, that's mad.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, at half time, when I was thinking about like what I was going to say about this game, it was a little bit concerned. Well, it was more than concerning for Juventus because, like I said, 0.04 XG in the first half. I mean, dominating possession and territory, but creating nothing at all. Kind of too sterile in possession. Trying to create that perfect chance, kind of taking too long to work the ball up the pitch and making it too easy for the opponents to kind of get into defensive.
But that was what I was going to ask you. This is what I mean when I say that Thiago Motta's Juve reminds me of the old Juve. The old Juve that used to lull opponents to sleep. And when they fell asleep, bam, strike. And before the opponent understood what happened, they're like, how the hell are we 2 goals down when we've barely... Do you know what I mean? Like this kind of lulling your opponents to sleep, like an anaconda, like a boa constrictor, slowly suffocating your opponent to death before they understand what happened. Boiling a frog slowly to death. That's what Juve do under Motta so far.
Yeah,
very patient. I think very patient.
It's a difficult one because obviously the penalties changed the game in this. I mean, Juventus' second half was great. They created lots of opportunities, not just the 3 goals they scored, but they could have scored other goals as well. Vlahovic missed an easy chance to get his hat trick, and there were other opportunities. So they did play well, but it was the penalty that was a mistake from De Winter. And that opened up this game. So it's always difficult to know, would the first half have continued if they hadn't got that penalty? It's difficult to say, but what we can say is that Juventus were excellent in the second half, and we saw Vlahovic answering the critics. I mean, he has been hammered this season, rightfully so. He's really been bad, and especially in the last 4 games where he's gone goalless. And he's put his penalty away well, but the second goal was the Vlahovic we want to see. It was a lethal finish. It was the Fiorentina Vlahovic. Like he went on to the fantastic free ball from Coop Miners and he buried it. I mean, that was lethal. That was a lethal finish, and he was he was. I mean, you saw the gesture for the celebration for the second goal, kind of with his hands as if to kind of silence those that are talking too much, and he could have had a hat trick.
That to me is just so. When players do that, it's like, homie, it's Genoa away. It's not the Champions League final. You want to do that? You want to do that to me? Then do that after you've scored 6 goals in a row. You've won. You've done it in important games, but a brace away against Genoa behind closed doors.
Well, no, I agree. I think that's true. Because we need to see the consistency. There's no good Vlahovic having one game like this every 6 games. He's got to do this consistently if he's gonna, like we've said for the last few weeks, if Juventus are going to realistically challenge and try and win the Scudetto, they're going to need Vlahovic to be like this, consistently, pretty much every game. And so this was good, but let's not get carried away. We need to see this consistently now.
Exactly.
Let's see if he can put a run together now.
Without a doubt. And that's the key takeaway here, is that Juve. For me, the key takeaways are this: Juve continue to not concede and win, even when Vlahovic isn't at his best. Vlahovic has scored 4 goals, if I'm not mistaken, in 6 games, even though he's been criticised. So there's more to get, and already there's more to capitalise on from Juve, but they're still top amongst the top. They haven't conceded a goal. They barely concede chances. So
it should be noted though that those 4 goals have come in 2 games, and 2 of them are
yeah,
penalties.
they have. They
and 2 of them are
absolutely have.
penalties. So it's like I said.
But that's what I mean. There's more to get, but
Yeah.
he's still, like, statistically, it's looking good, and there's that's what bodes well for Juve. Is if we're to talk about, to build up towards the segment about who will win the Scudetto, from a Juve perspective, if you're winning, barely conceding, and you still have lots of question marks, that's good. That's
that is good. I mean, I thought
Koop
Miners put in a great performance, and
He was very good.
He
Should have had a goal.
He should have done. He missed virtually an open goal, but he's starting to. I mean, I thought he was brilliant against PSV in the first match day of the Champions League, and I thought he was brilliant in this game. He was. I mean, his assist for Vlahovic's second goal, that pass was
brilliant.
Was absolutely brilliant. I mean, if you watch it, if you freeze the frame and see how he dissected the Genoa middle of the Genoa team, I mean, it was brilliant. He did a lovely, amazing. His understanding and awareness of those around him and space, I think, is brilliant. Koop Miners, his dummy. You see his dummy for Conceição's goal, and he's a leader as well. Like, if you watch him, a little bit like Jorginho does, the way that he kind of instructs his players, his teammates, where to move. He beckons them. You stand there. You go there. Come on, everybody. Let's push up. He's a leader, and he's only just joined. And I think that's you need players like that. But the other player that I want to praise is Fagioli, because we've also been very critical of him, because I don't think he's had a particularly good start to the season.
He certainly has.
He was brilliant in this game. He was a metronome. Everything went through him. 98 touches in this game. He was very, very good in this game. So let's see if he can build on that. And also Conceição, he come back because he's been out injured. He came back on, and I thought it was a very impressive cameo from him. He got his first goal for Juventus. He did some brilliant play on the right where he beat his man to set up that open goal chance for Koop Miners and he's just very lively. I think he's the kind of player that might actually be more useful as a bench player for Juventus. He's somebody that can come on and just ignite and liven up the game, especially closed games, and he eliminates his man. He can beat his man, and especially with kind of like, we talked about the careful nature of Motta's football and how they try not to overcommit. When you've got a player that can beat his man, that's how you create the overloads. When teams are set up to defend and very comfortably positioned around the field, you get someone like Conceição that can beat his man. Someone else has to shift over. That creates the space, and then you can create chances. And I think that Conceição off the bench, we might see more useful off the bench rather than starting. That's just my impression.
No, I agree with you.
He gets into the game.
He's a good weapon to have off the bench. Yeah, he's a good weapon to have off the bench, and he's very direct when he comes on. It's like some players just don't overcomplicate things. He doesn't overcomplicate things at all, and he just goes straight towards goal. He does what he's supposed to do without much fuss, isn't it? Like, it just feels very simple when he plays.
Direct player,
yeah, very direct player. So no, yeah. He's a good weapon for Juve to have off the bench.
No, yeah, I like him. I do like him. But I think it's positive for Juventus. I think it hasn't been stated how impressive it is that Motta already has Juventus. The style of play has been revolutionised from Allegri. I mean, if we consider 3 years of Allegri terrible with no patterns of play, no possession, to change that mindset and that style of play just so quickly. We're 6 games into the season and we're already seeing Juventus. Okay, it's sterile at times, but if you look at the way that Juventus have changed their game to dominate, I think they had 66% possession in this game. you see the patterns, you see the movements off the ball. The way that he's changed that and he's got everyone into that with so many new players as well. I do think that is very impressive to have done that so quickly and to have everyone on board. I think it's remarkable, really. And so if you imagine that now and what it's going to be like, 6 months into the season rather than 6 weeks, I think it's impressive. Having said that, though, Genoa, we do have to talk about it because it was a Genoa team that was, they weren't really at home and they were gutted. I mean, their team is gutted, already was gutted through losing Retegui and Goodmanson. Malinovsky out for the season with that horror injury. I mean, Ekuban was out as well. Macias was out. And I have to be honest with you, as much as I think Gilardino, I think he's a wonderful young manager and he's got a big future ahead of him. I worry for Genoa this season. I'm looking at their team and I'm wondering where's the goals going to come from? Where's the quality in this team? They just. I'm a bit worried for them. I am worried for Genoa this season at the moment.
Yeah, I'm too. I don't like where this is going at all. And the fact that Malinovsky's out, they lost Retegui and Goodmanson in the beginning. This was not supposed to happen. Their fans are not happy about this at all. And they are rightfully pissed because they were led to believe that they were going to have a good season in this, and that's why they sold so many pre-season. And now, of course, losing a game against Sampdoria as well on the back of losing to Venezia. And of course, they drew Roma and they've drawn Inter. They beat Monza, but they've also lost to Verona. I'm worried about them too, and I hope that I don't see this as faltering on Gilardino's doorstep. I think it was more a poor managerial, poor directorial, poor sports.
Oh, no doubt about that. What is Gilardino supposed to do with
what are you going to do?
Even that draw against Roma, they got battered in that game, and that was just pure will getting a kind of.
I'm sorry, but when I look at their attack, Pinamonti, Vitinha, Ekuban, Ankeye, Acornero, Ekator. What do you want from him?
No, I think it's an attack that's really a relegation attack. Let's be honest.
And even the midfield. I mean, what do you want from him?
No, I agree. I think they're going to struggle badly. I really do. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult season for them. Very difficult. Let's move on to Inter now, who react to that derby loss with a very dominant win here. Created so many chances in this game, but the big talking point is that Lautaro is back. 2 goals, brilliant finish for that. The second goal, wasn't it? Was the really great one. The first one was a bit of a bizarre one, but yeah, brilliant performance from Lautaro and very, very impressive response to the derby loss.
Well, this is a very interesting game in the sense that I look at, when I was watching this and I tweeted this out, it felt like Inzaghi 2.0, this Inzaghi season 2, when Inter created lots, were a little bit were poor defensively, and that season Inter would have lost it. If this game was played 2 years ago, Inter would have lost this game, but they didn't, even because when Udinese pushed back, when Udinese created and equalized against the run of play, Inter are now a team that has matured mentally, that they don't get stressed out about these things. They continue doing what they're supposed to do, especially in the attacking phase, and they grind teams down. And that's precisely what happened. They scored 2-1. Okay, it was a very lucky shit goal for Lautaro, but that's just the kind of jammy goal a goal scorer needs in order to get back into form. And he showed that with his second goal. And they created lots of chances, and it didn't sit on them mentally that they conceded, that they had created, and against the run of play Udinese equalized. Instead, they just kept on going. And that, to me, is growth. And that's the biggest positive, because Lautaro getting back to goal-scoring form is hardly a surprise. It was going to happen sooner or later. And it's important for him and Inter that he gets goal scoring. But for me, the biggest talking point is that the mental growth that we can see from Inter this season, because Udinese away is a difficult game for Inter. Again, if this game was played 2 seasons ago, like it was, Inter would have lost, like they did. They went a goal up and then they lost. Inzaghi was immediately under fire. Here, they turned the page very controlled, very calmly, despite suffering in this game. And the second biggest positive is Davide Fratesi. It's not just that he scored the goal. It's not just that he was a threat going forward. I was very impressed by the way how he actually looks like he's working on improving his passing, which is very interesting. I thought his passing was really good this game.
Yeah, I actually had a look at his pass success rate. I just love doing it for Fratesi because I'm sort of like hung up on some of his terrible stats like before, and I think it was in the 90s anyway. So that's brilliant for Fratesi. That is.
It is brilliant, and it again shows that Inzaghi believes in Fratesi, but he also knows how to put him in a position to succeed. And in this game, Fratesi, for me, was the man of the match for Inter, more than Lautaro.
Can I just stop you on Fratesi? I have a question for you, right? Is it any coincidence that Fratesi plays this well when Barella is out? Because I know this question has been asked, and I know you've got a bit irritated by this question in the past, but I do wonder, can Fratesi and Barella play together? Or can Fratesi play at his best when Barella is in the team?
I absolutely think he can. And the reason for that is because I think Barella is so, like, he can play in so many different roles in midfield that I don't see those two hampering each other. The issue is not if Fratesi and Barella can play together. The issue is what do Inter do when Çalhanoğlu is having a bad day? Or
I'm not just thinking of Inter here either, by the way. I have my eye on Italy as well.
I think they have played together and done so pretty well for Italy, if I remember correctly. I think they have played together. One of the early games that Spalletti was in charge. But regardless, I think the key to get Inter's midfield to tick is that you need to have Çalhanoğlu, even when he's having a bad day like he did against Udinese, because he was not good. Inter's midfield ticked pretty well. The problem is what happens when Çalhanoğlu's not there, because Aslani right now is just not at the level that he has to be after almost 2-3 years at Inter, which is a different problem. But yeah, I did think about that, and I think that I think they can play together simply because of Barella's versatility, and I would love to see them play together as well.
I think the issue is maybe this: when Fratesi and Barella play together, one or both of them, but at least one of them, alters their game slightly, and as a result, and maybe they haven't quite altered their game in a way to get the best out of them, or get the best out of both of them, and as a result, that's affected the team or the midfield as a whole, and maybe that's why it hasn't quite consistently paid off when the two of them have played together, and maybe the managers haven't found the way, whether it's Spalletti, but there has been the odd game, like you said, Fritzi, but definitely not consistently, as we saw in the Euros. And then the same for Inter. Maybe that's why Inzaghi hasn't really trusted them together.
That could partly be it, but also I think it's got to do with the fact that when Barella plays on the right, or it depends on who plays on the left or right. If you play Fratesi on the left next to Di Marco, there's going to be some issues there because Di Marco has defensive deficiencies. Similarly, when Dumfries plays on the right, you have, Barella's game is hampered because he has to think and run and play for two. So I think that's the issue. Okay, so if you play Darmian, you can play Fratesi on the right. That's fine, because Darmian is such an intelligent player, especially in the defensive phase, that he kind of makes up for that. And of course, you got Çalhanoğlu there. So if that were to happen, then you have to play Barella on the left, because as defensive deficiencies goes, Di Marco has less defensive deficiencies than Denzel Dumfries does. So I think if they play together, it would have to be a situation where Barella plays on the left and Fratesi plays on the right.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
As long as Darmian plays. I think that's what it is, more than anything else. But it was very important for Inter to win without Barella. it was very important for Inter to win, like I said, despite Çalhanoğlu having a bad game, making mistakes. Despite Inter making mistakes, we usually don't.
Yeah, I think that's
we
the
don't
only
see them
negative
do.
for me in this game is that
I was going
Inter
to
was
get to
so
that.
dominant, so much the better team, creating so many more chances in the years, yet they still somehow concede 2 goals and 2 sloppy goals as well. So I mean, that's the
That's the
negative,
biggest issue.
and quite
Listen,
bizarre actually, because you think Inter go from that incredible defensive masterclass against Man City, and then the next 2 games they concede really
well, it
cheap
is
goals
weird,
and a
isn't
lot
it?
of cheap chances as well. Yeah, in
It's
2 games in
weird
a row.
because when they played Atalanta and smashed them, they didn't concede. They won 4-0. City 0-0. But when it comes to playing against, Udinese or Monza, Genoa, then they concede 1-2 goals each time. The Milan game is a different one. I think the derby has its own kind of ecosystem almost. But
Yeah.
those are weird. But I still maintain that I think we're seeing a difficult preseason where the players, because what I see from everyone is improvement, even though it's not where it needs to be, but I do see improvement. I see improvement from Çalhanoğlu. I see improvement from Lautaro. I think Di Marco's probably been Inter's consistently together with Darmian best player this season so far, together, Thuram in a few games, but overall consistently, I think Di Marco and Darmian have been the best so far. Even Mkhitaryan took steps forward in this game, which we were, there were questions of, is he, physically finished? Well, he played 90 minutes and he was pretty decent. Acerbi was good in the middle. Bastoni looked better, but still they took him off and they rested him. So I still think it's more right now. My money is more on the, resting the team into form that Inzaghi has to do, and it seems like he's doing that. But I mean, now Inter have Crvena Zvezda at home and Torino at home. They should win in the Champions League fairly easily. And then you've got a tricky game because you don't really know. Torino, to me, are an enigma this season. They can hurt anyone going forward, but equally they can concede.
Yeah,
It's
they've changed
really
so much.
difficult to
I think they've
understand where they are.
overperformed. Their points tally
They are overperforming
they're
their points tally.
overperforming. So I actually think that's a good. I actually think that's a good game for Inter. The only other thing I want to note on Inter is I've noticed that they're conceding a lot of goals off crosses from the right
Yeah.
into the box and then headers. So we saw
Inter's
Danny Motta's
left.
goal
Yeah.
against Monza, the equaliser. We saw Gabbia, obviously the derby, and then again Cabasele's that cross from the right. Player moves across his marker to get the header.
Yeah.
Notice that or not?
I've
Might just be a
noticed that.
coincidence, but it's
No,
something
yeah,
they need
it
to
is,
look
but
at.
it happens. It's once, twice, thrice. And also there's something about Jan Sommer that is starting to worry me. I'm getting very much Samir Handanovic vibes, ball watching. I don't like it at all. I hope it's just a coincidence, but this is. I feel in so far this season, it's very Handanovic before Handanovic turned into a meme. Like that's the area that it reminds me of, and it really, 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 really concerns me. But then again, Inter did spend money on a goalkeeper this summer, so they kind of have, insured themselves to that. If Sommer were to completely fall off a cliff like Handanovic did this time around, they actually have invested money for that in the event that should happen. But so I wouldn't be surprised if we go into match day 8, 9, 10 and Martinez starts in goal. That's just something to keep an eye on. I'm not saying that we're there, but I'm just saying it's starting to. We've been here before with Inter.
Yeah,
The
no,
difference,
I
of
agree.
course,
A
is
quick note on Udinese is this is a theme of Serie A so far this season. Is how many teams have completely revolutionised their style from changing from offensive to defensive, or more from defensive to offensive. And Udinese are, along with Torino, along with Juventus, are another example of that, because they've gone from being a team that's quite defensive and cautious and sometimes a bit dreary in recent seasons to a team that's also ridiculously open this season and actually quite very exciting to watch, and so that is, I think that's good. It's good for the neutral. But Lorenzo Luca, I do want to give a shout out to him. I don't know why he didn't start this game because he's on fantastic form. He scored again. Third Serie A goal of the season, 5 in 7 in all competitions. And when we did an interview early this month with Maduka Okoye, who, by the way, gifted into the first goal, I think he'll admit that himself. When we had him on our pod and we interviewed him, he actually singled out Luca and said that he basically deserves the Italy national team, and basically said that he is the future of the Italy national team.
Well, if he continues like this, he'll definitely be in the squad, that's for sure, because he's not just being this kind of Petagna, Borriello, long balls, header, Italian Jan Koller. He's actually doing things with his feet. He's actually providing to be very useful as a striker as a whole. And that second goal, that there was lots of work for him to do when Çalhanoğlu made that, or when Inter made that mistake and Çalhanoğlu missed a tackle, which I'm very grateful for, that he missed, that he didn't kick down Luca, because that's a straight red card, if it is. So, it's rather concede a goal in that situation than take a red card. But Luca looks very fired up for this season.
Yeah,
it's going to be an interesting one to follow.
He always seems to make an impact as well. Let's move on to Milan, who have certainly started to make an impact now. Same team, same formation as the Inter game, the 4-4-2, and another win, another convincing win. 3 Serie A wins in a row now, and Fonseca has gone from the brink of the sack to putting on a run now, and
3 wins in a row in the Serie A.
Yeah, 3 wins in a row in the Serie A. Sorry, because they did lose to Liverpool in Champions League, but kind of strange first half, because the first, until they scored Milan, Lecce were actually probably the better team, and Milan had barely created a chance. But as soon as Morata scored, it was just the floodgates opened, and Milan scored
3 goals in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
exactly. 5 goals in 3 minutes. It's that's what it's like. Milan are a team, like I said. The reason why I don't think they're going to be, challenging for the title this season is that I still think that they're not mature enough. They're not ready. They're a bit of they're a moody team in the sense that, like you said, the floodgates open. Equally, who knows what would have happened if Lecce had scored? Do you know what I mean? In the sense that it still feels very much a work in progress. And if they score a goal, and just by sheer enthusiasm, they score 2 more. And they were at home, buoyed on by their home crowd after a derby win, for putting an end to all that 6 in a row nonsense from their perspective. So they are a very it's very moody in the sense that if it goes well, then by sheer enthusiasm alone, they go off and score 2-3 more within a space of 5 minutes. And then, of course, Lecce don't have the quality and firepower to come back from 3 goals down in 5 minutes. But it was very interesting, because it was, especially, I think the first 2 goals were just individual brilliance. I think Teo's goal that's individual class. That finish, that the ball from Leao, the finish is all just that's just sheer quality. From the difference in quality of when Teo is in form, or when he enjoys his football, that's the quality he has on an individual level to score goals like that. We've seen him do it in other games as well throughout his Milan career. I thought it was very interesting to see Pulisic score again, and he's now scored 4 goals in 4 games, and he's a top goal scorer, and it's kind of interesting because, again, it goes to show what I kind of thought was going to happen, that Morata's going to be the guy who unlocks the others, if you know what I mean, because of his movement, because of his intelligence, and before the opening goal, if I'm not mistaken, Tammy hit the woodwork, didn't he? And then Morata scores. It's like they attack in waves, and Morata is the key master to when those waves are unlocked. and it's very, very interesting to see. And he's very, very important for them.
The Morata's very important. New look, shaved head, which he did for I think for awareness, cancer awareness, actually. But he's had a good weekend, because there were reports. I don't know how true this is, but there's reports that he's reconciled with his wife as well, and he celebrated with his kids at the side of the pitch, because she flew over with the kids from Madrid, and he scored, and he got 35 minutes rest as well ahead of the Champions League as well, and Milan managed to rest players ahead of that Bayer Leverkusen game. So it's very positive there. I think Teo and Leao obviously combined for the Teo goal, which was positive again. And Pulisic, like you said, another goal, fourth goal of the season. He's got 2 assists as well. I saw a stat. I haven't double checked this myself, but I saw a stat floating around that he has the most goal contributions in Serie A since he joined. Out of everyone, between goals and assists. So I mean, that's very, very impressive, and it shows it proves what I've said, is that he has been Milan's most consistent player since joining. I'm not saying he's the best player, but most consistent. He's the player. Like what I've said about Leao and Teo is they're not necessarily players you can always rely on. You're playing a game, and can we rely on Teo and Leao today? Well, I'm not sure. They could turn it on, but they could also not. Have one of those games where they're off it. Whereas Pulisic, you kind of know what you're going to get from him all the time, and even if he has a bad game, what he's gonna bring as a team player. And I think that also, just on the team point, I think that's also why we've seen a bit of a change. It's not just down to the formation. I think what we're seeing Milan now have more. Fonseca has introduced more team players like Abraham and Morata, both up front together. They are team players. They work so hard. They run. They press. And when you add that to Pulisic, you add that to, Fofana definitely works hard. And then you add that to Gabbia, who, as I've said, is more of a reliable player who kind of just holds his position. You know what you're going to get from him. In addition to, whereas the other players, like I've said, like Teo, Leao, kind of more individualists. Milan maybe had too many of those in the team, whereas now they've got a sprinkling of team players and some individuals, and I think that is working better. It's making Milan more of a team.
I agree with that. I think that's kind of why maybe I think that was the now that we've had a few weeks of distance to what happened at the cooling break against Lazio. Maybe that is kind of what it was, wasn't it? It was a little bit of a wake up call to Teo and Leao, but maybe more the latter, that this is a team and you need to carry your own weight within the team, regardless of how brilliant you are. Which is why I think also when you do that to the star players, you win the respect of everyone in the dressing room if you handle it correctly. And I think we can say safely now that he did handle it correctly, Fonseca. Otherwise, Milan wouldn't have turned on. The Milan players wouldn't have turned up like they have. Against Inter, against Lecce, against Venezia.
Fonseca's also said, Nima, by the way, that they are working on
very hard
Leao defensive phase to make him better, to make him work harder defensively and to be more useful out of possession. So
and the fact that he's actually doing it as well, that suggests that Fonseca's he's not at odds with the stars of this team. He's not at odds, but whatever problems they've had, the team is actually united behind him, which is the most important thing. Regardless of results, you need to have unity in a group before you can have anything else.
Yeah, no, they're definitely working harder. They're definitely moving. They're both definitely running more. They're not
as a unit.
They're not
and cohesively.
Exactly. Like you didn't see, especially like the likes of Leao, kind of lazy, kind of not moving, just off the ball. Defensive phases, like you are seeing more of that from all of them.
More.
Before they were playing the first one to move his gay game, and they weren't moving at all. Now they're losing that game.
No, but seriously, but I gotta say though, I find some of the comments in Italian media recently about Leao to be quite childish and silly, especially from Milan journalists and people who cover Milan. It's getting a bit.
In what
way?
Was it?
No, I saw, what was it? One guy said about giving Fonseca decided to give the captain's armband to Leao as a teacher would do to a misbehaving child in a classroom just to keep him quiet. And I feel that is ridiculous. I don't think he has done anything to warrant that level of criticism now at this point. And it's starting to annoy me.
I don't know.
But it's getting soundness Pogba levels now.
Right, yeah, I get that. I think that there's a time and a place. I think he absolutely deserved all the criticism after what happened with the cooling break and some of his actions with Di Canio and when you group that all together. But now that Milan have gone on this run, I mean, I think if you're doing it now, then you have a bit of an agenda.
Well, exactly what I mean. It's getting soundness Pogba.
If he throws in a stinker against Leverkusen and then Milan lose, then all by all means criticise him, but don't do it. Do you know what I mean? Now,
yeah, and it's not like he wasn't bad against Lecce. Okay, he didn't have the best of games against Inter. Teo was brilliant against Inter, but I just don't like where we're going off on these irrelevant tangents and trying to invent problems. I mean, Leao's been there for how many years? 5 years now? 6 years? I mean, how long has he been there?
Yeah.
It's not weird that he gets to wear the captain's armband in a game. That's actually pretty consistent with how all Italian teams work in terms of who's been there latest and who's been there the most and gets to carry the arm. Do you know what I mean? He is a leader at Milan. This is what he has to be, a leader at Milan. Of course he's a leader at Milan. He's been there long enough. He's a star player at Milan. Why wouldn't he be a leader? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's getting child. I don't like it when it turns into this, like I said, soundness Pogba level of pettiness and childishness. It annoys me.
Yeah, for sure. So let's now look at the top of the table, because we're 6 games into the season, and after everything that has happened, Napoli losing that first game 3-0 at Verona, and everyone asking questions, and then Inter having a few negative results, losing the derby, Juventus going 5.5 hours without scoring at one point, and Milan being in such a crisis at one point that Fonseca was on the brink of the sack before the Milan derby. After all of that, all those apparent problems, the top 4 teams in Serie A, who are they? Napoli, Inter, Juventus, and Milan,
as we said
predicted.
they would be. As I said, they
all
would
separated
be
by 2 points. So, it's kind of as expected. I mean, from what we have seen at this early stage, from the first 6 weeks of the season, who do you have your Scudetto money on now, Nima?
I still have the same Scudetto winner as I had before the season began, and that's Juventus. For the simple reason that this is a league that you win by conceding the least. And when Juventus don't concede barely shots, let alone goals, then I think the writing's on the wall. And then I also look at Inter and Milan, who are working themselves. They're in good form. They concede far too much. They have 7 goals conceded between them in 6 games. There are evident problems defensively for both of these teams, obviously for various different reasons and various different kinds of issues, but they're there. Whilst Napoli and Juve look very, very solid, and Juve look ridiculously solid for it to be this early on. So if I have no reason to change my preseason prediction at all. I still think it's Juve, Inter, and Napoli, separated by 3 to 4 points.
Yeah, I think it's a very hard one to call. I mean, it's still really too early. I mean, these are ridiculously early predictions we're making here, but I think you can make a case for all 4. But the only one I'd be comfortable in ruling out is Milan, because I think that they are. I think there's less guarantees from Milan than there are with the other 3. I think the other 3, there's guarantees with all of them. Juventus, they look so good defensively. They look structurally very, very good already, and they look like they're going to control games, and that's going to make it difficult for opponents. With Napoli, there is the Conte factor, of course, and that they're out of Europe. They're playing once a week, which Conte said himself, by the way, after the win against Monza. He said that that's an undoubted advantage for us. He then actually played down Napoli's title hopes, which he does. And
What a
said,
surprise.
He said, look, he says the advantage for us is we're playing once a week. That's a huge advantage. He admitted that. But he said the disadvantage is that by not playing in Europe, that shows that there's a gap in quality. We have to make up 40 points.
He is the master at doing this, isn't he? Like, even from the outside, when it looks like, is he mentally ill? Why is he doing crazy shit like that? I remember at Inter when, after the Borussia Dortmund game, when they were 2-0 up at half time, and he's like, well, what do you expect from us? We bought players from Sassuolo and Cagliari. Yeah, Stefano Sensi and Nicolo Barella. Like, do you know what I mean? He always does
One
this.
thing he always does, is when he joins a new club, is he references the number of points they were behind the title winners the season before. He does that.
Always.
He does that every time. He did that at Juventus. He did that at Chelsea, and he did that at Inter as well. And
everywhere.
He says that's too much of a big gap. You can't expect to.
You're expecting me, poor little me, to do all of this on my own.
You can't close a 15-point or 20-point gap in 1 year. It's impossible. And then he wins the league with Juventus.
Yeah, with about 25 points to spare. Yeah, no, it's typical.
But I do think that that is a huge factor, because these players are overplayed. Players are exhausted and tired already because they haven't had a rest for years in the summer. And then you're going into this ridiculously long season, extended Champions League. We expect Juventus and Inter and Milan still should as well to qualify, to get into the knockout stages, to be playing into to February, hopefully later, March, April, we hope as well. That all those games is gonna take
a toll, and we know that Conte teams in February, March are always, that's when they really show. He grills them in the summer because he builds them long term, and he keeps them going throughout the season. Yeah. There's no messing about with this guy. He doesn't. He doesn't.
So that's why Napoli are there, and then Inter. I mean, listen, objectively on paper, Inter have the best team. They have the best and the deepest squad. They have a great manager. So on pay, and they're the champions. They have the most experience out of all the teams. So they are, for me, they are still the favourites. But as I said, I think you can make a case for all three of them. Well, for all four of them, really. But I would.
But
if I have to rule one out, I'd probably rule out Milan.
Yeah, no, look, I'd rule out Milan for the simple reason, like I said, I still feel it's too much of a work in progress. I think maybe 1 year, if this continues, this run of form, and Milan continue to impress and continue to win and continue to grow gradually, and then maybe in a year's time we could talk about them as a Scudetto favorite, even, who knows. But right now I feel, compared to the other three, they're still a little bit too far behind in their development, whilst, for various reasons, of course. Whilst with Juve, Inter, and Milan, Juve, Inter, and Napoli, for very, very, very differing reasons, it's too close to call. But if you're asking me what I think, I still stand by what I said before the season. I still think that Juve are the favourites and will win because of the fact that they spent the most, they were the most active, they built something from scratch again, which creates enthusiasm. They have a coach who understands how to behave at Juve. They have a coach who understands that you win the Serie A by being solid defensively, and they have a coach who knows how to get the best out of.
I think with Juventus lack the experience of Napoli and Inter, and that's
also important.
That could count against them maybe later in the season if they are in the hunt. I do think that Juventus do need, and I've said this, they need Vlahovic. They need their striker to show some consistency, and we just haven't had that with Vlahovic. If they are, otherwise they are going to struggle to score the goals. And you can't go 1-0 the whole way through the season. Eventually that it catches up with you. You can't have the second lowest XG in Serie A, which Juventus had before this weekend, and be challenging up at the top and do that for a whole season. Eventually, it ends up playing out into reality. So that's why Juventus need Vlahovic to start showing some consistency. Otherwise, Juventus are going to draw too many games. That's
I
what they
agree.
need
I agree 100%. And for Inter, in order to see Inter repeating a Scudetto, their Scudetto, retain their Scudetto title, what I need to see from Inter is defensive solidity that we saw last season, when Inter were a unit in both phases. They're a unit in attack, but they're not a unit in defense. And that is worrying. It's been better. They're improving consistently, slowly, but they need to start showing that kind of, for example, one way that this shows itself is the sheer number of goals that Inter concede in the last 15 minutes. Last season, they barely conceded in the last 15 minutes. So far, they've conceded, I think, 6 goals in the last 15 minutes out of the 7. And that is a concern. A team that concedes goals late on is not a team that wins championships. That's just how it is. Because you can't always count on scoring 4 or 5 goals every single game in order for it to not matter that you concede late on. So what I want to see from Inter in order to see them winning, or I think what they need to do in order to retain their title, they need to find whatever it is that is bothering them. Is it a physical issue still? Well, then that will disappear with time. But is it also a structural issue? These late goals they concede is a problem at Inter, and they need to sort that out in order for them to win the league. It's really that simple.
Yeah, there's always going to be things for all teams that you need to play out and to come together or to avoid. And the same comes with always how far do you go in Europe? How many injuries do you get? If you lose key players for an extended period of time, then that's going to affect your title challenge. If Inter were to lose Lautaro for 5 months, or if Napoli were to lose Lukaku, or Juventus were to lose Koopmeiners, or do you know what I mean? So these are all things that are impossible to call.
But I understand what you're saying. Of course, injuries plays into it, but what I'm talking about is structural weaknesses. Juventus have a Vlahovic thing, or a Douglas Luiz thing. The jury's still out on that. Milan have a maturity thing. Where are Milan in the Fonseca project? Napoli have, Juventus have also a lack of experience, but then you have Napoli, and we know that Naples is a very volatile environment. And Conte is a very volatile human person. If 1 or 2 results go badly, how does he handle it? With Inter, the biggest negative or structural question mark, I should say rather, I have is conceding late goals. Conceding generally, but above all, conceding goals in the last 15 minutes. A team that wins championships does not concede goals that late.
Yeah,
consistently.
well, we'll see. It
like
might just be form on both of those things there. Let's move on and quickly round up the other games. So first of all, Bologna-Atalanta 1-1. Very bad week for Atalanta. They just avoided it being a disastrous week with a brilliant 90th minute equaliser from Samasic, but they lost 3-2 at home to Como in an awful performance, awful, as bad as I've seen Atalanta. Deservedly lost, and then they draw 1-1 here against Bologna in a game which they deserved to win. They hit the woodwork twice, and they had lots and lots of chances. And yeah, it's just Atalanta just seem a little bit. Luck is against them at the moment this season, I think, when you look at some of the results, but also obviously the injuries and everything, the difficult summer that they've had. But it's been a difficult start to the season. They've got 2 wins in 8 in all competitions. It's just, it's not great at Atalanta right now.
No, but we also seen an Atalanta side suddenly hit form and just smash everyone and smack everyone left, right, and center when they hit form. I do agree with you, especially this game. They were so unlucky. They deserved to win. I don't know how Bologna managed to get a point from this game. In any normal game where you have some sort of normal fallout from the chances you create, they would have won this game easily because they created more than enough chances to win. I mean, I'm sorry, but if we're talking about XG, Bologna had an XG of overall of like 0.1, and Atalanta had an XG of 2.0, and this game ends 1-1. It's like, where are we? You know? So, I mean, this is maximum bad luck. But they didn't lose. And I think that was the most important thing, that they scored a late equalizer, and they can build on from that. But yeah, they're not exactly, they're not lucky, to put
Yeah,
it that way.
I've noticed a big weakness with Atalanta, which I'm actually very critical of their summer transfer market, and that is, I think they've left themselves short in two key positions: their centre midfield and their centre forward. They have no alternative to Retegui at centre forward as a natural striker. He's the only striker they have, because obviously Scamacca done his ACL, is going to miss pretty much the whole season, and they've also, they've got rid of some other attacking players, and they have no replacement. He's been overplayed so far this season, and he had a very, very bad game against Como. He was horrible against Como, and I'd probably put that down to just being overplayed. And he was actually rested for this game. So that they've got no alternative to Retegui, which is a problem. And they have an even bigger problem. They have no alternative to Ederson at centre midfield, who basically, for me, has to play every game for Atalanta. Otherwise, they are vulnerable at centre midfield. I think they're already vulnerable because the defence, which has been horrendous so far, they've conceded so many goals, that Derone, who is the only other really, for me, acceptable centre midfielder next to Ederson, ends up being drafted back and playing at the back. It means that Ederson is partnered by someone who's not really naturally suited. I mean, I don't think Pasalic or even Samacic or I don't think either of these are really natural two-man centre midfielders. I think they're more advanced centre midfielders for me, or a midfield three kind of player. But that's if Ederson plays every game. He can't play every game, even though he is a machine. He's going to get tired, and he's actually had a bit of a slow start to the season generally as well, Ederson. So they're short. If Ederson doesn't play every game, which he can't do, you can't play 60 games a season. I think they're short at centre midfield. They're one man short in the striker position, and they're one man short at centre midfield. And I think that is already causing them problems, and it's going to cause them more problems as the season goes on. So I think that they've not done well in the summer market in those two positions. They've left themselves short, and I think that's a problem.
I think they left themselves short in midfield, centre midfield for sure, as a replacement for Koopmeiners. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I see more an issue of a central defence. I think Scalvini's injury and not really replacing him properly is what's more causing the problems in midfield, because that means, like you said, Derone has to be there, and that gives them imbalance further up the pitch. I think in attack, Lookman, De Ketelaere, Zaniolo, Retegui, whatever, I still think they have options there. I think they're more decimated.
Well, I think in defence they have the numbers. Like, they have enough players. I don't think they have enough. I don't think they have like the actual. But my point is, I don't think they have the actual natural number 9 and the natural centre midfielders they need. But in defence, they have the numbers. I think the issue is, which is probably what you're saying, is are they the quality? Do they have the quality in defence?
Yeah,
so far,
exactly
it looks like they don't. I mean, but they did bring players in. They brought in Godfrey from Everton, and they brought in Kosunu from Bayer Leverkusen, and they haven't really played much so far. So we'll see, if they do when they start playing regularly, whether they end up being good enough. But certainly right now, yeah, the defence has been terrible. I mean, look how many goals they've conceded. It's mad. The only game they actually really played well defensively in was against Arsenal. Really, weirdly enough, Arsenal didn't really create anything in that game at all. So every other game they've been so well. I guess they were unlucky in this game, but they've been so wide open generally this season. But Bologna, I mean, at least Bologna have started to get some positive results now. Too many draws, but the results are getting a bit better for Bologna.
Absolutely. And I think that they were lucky in this game, and I think Italiano perhaps views this as, well, maybe I deserved a bit of luck. But look, I got to say, I'm pretty surprised by Bologna. they've only lost one game, and that was against Napoli. Other than that, okay, draw
They've only
against
won one game
Venezia.
as well, though.
Sorry?
They've only won one game as
Well,
well.
that's what I mean. I expected them to lose more games. I think they've overall done pretty all right. I mean, they've drawn one. They've drawn well in the Champions League one, and they've drawn 4 times in the Serie A. They've won once in the Serie A.
I have to say one thing though. The games that they've had this season. They've had a quite easy start to the season.
They
Like
have
if you look at their games, so
Udinese, Empoli, Como, Monza.
Yeah. And the
Except
game
for
they lost was
Napoli, where
against
they
Napoli, and
Napoli.
against Atalanta they deserved to lose as well. So
they were lucky.
yeah.
I'm sorry. How in the actual hell you managed to not lose when you've got an XG of 0.1 over 90 minutes against 2.0? I mean, that is just go and buy yourself a lottery ticket, mate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly your week.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you who also got lucky and got out of jail is Roma. Roma against Venezia. They're losing 1-0 in this game, and Venezia should have finished them off. Oristano missed a one-on-one at 1-0, and they also had another disallowed goal for offside. Roma were really bad in this game. They were opened up so easily, like just cut open by Venezia team, which is on paper is a Serie B team. But they managed to turn it around. I mean, Juric made some tactical changes. He went to a back four in the second half, and that kind of turned the game around. But they were lucky. I mean, Cristante's equaliser. I mean, wow, that's just one of the luckiest goals you'll ever see. I mean, massive. It was a bit. Do you know what goal it reminded me of? Do you remember Andreas Bremer for West Germany
against England in the World Cup?
Yeah, it was like that, wasn't it? Like huge kind of loop in deflection in the centre of the goal, though, over the goalkeeper. I don't know whether he could have moved a bit better to that.
No, Venezia more than created enough to win this game, but they didn't because they didn't have the finishers. They were unable to capitalize, despite only having 31% ball possession overall, which is very interesting.
Oristano was actually quite good in this game, but his finishing, like I said, his finishing let him down. But yeah, Roma were bad in this game, and they managed to get the win. They showed good kind of fighting spirit, which I guess you're always going to get with a manager like Juric, that's for sure. And Pizzilli, I think that's the biggest positive to come out of this. Pizzilli scores the header to win it, but he also went close a couple of other times with headers as well. And Juric was very, very complimentary of Pizzilli after the game. He's only 19, and he says he's made of the right stuff. Like he obviously feels like mentally this is a player that's got it, And
another Rome-born, Rome-raised lad comes, who's played for Italy all the way from under 18 to under 21, comes through at Roma. It's and now he's going to be given a better contract to keep him at the club. I mean, we talk about Roma, we talk about Italian youth not getting a chance, but at Roma's just pumping them out, aren't they? I mean, it feels like every season we're talking about 2-3 youngsters at Roma who are all doing really well and are growing and showing promise.
Yeah, I agree. It's like we said, we had a question on the Q&A episode, didn't we, last week about, what is it, which regions in Italy produce the best players? And it's incredible, really. Rome, especially from Roma, the players that they seem to keep churning out. Let's hope that Pizzilli is the next top player to come from Rome. Also in Rome, excuse me, Lazio, excellent week, fantastic week for Lazio. Convincing wins over for Dinamo Kiev and Torino. I have to say, I was critical of Atalanta's market. Lazio's summer market has been so far probably the best in Serie A. If you look at how their summer signings have performed, brilliant. I mean, Boulaye Dia has 4 goals now already. Nuno Tavares has been an absolute monster at left back. He's got 4th assist, which is he's set a new record for, I think, consecutive assists for a new signing in Serie A. I believe that's the record. Brilliant. Dele Bashiru, who didn't play in this game against Torino, but he was great in the Europa League win over Dinamo Kiev, and Baroni has said that he has the talent to become a really big player. Monster of a player, physically, absolutely, like players bouncing off him. But yeah, I like the look. I think he's got potential there. And Noslin, I do like him, and he came on and scored his first goal for for Lazio as well. I mean, that's just 4 of them, but their new signings have. I mean, what brilliant market it looks like that they've had.
And Castrovilli is still kind of they're yet to see him kind of.
Chawana as well, yeah.
Yeah, no. What they did sign was they brought in a coach and they bought players to him at a kind of low cost level, which he's always been good at this reboot, hasn't he? Lotito. The problem is, as I always say, is taking that next step forward. But I think it's still too soon to say. But one thing I will say about this Lazio is it's rock and roll in that part of Rome. There's not, gone are the days of Sarri, Inzaghi, and so on. This is just, let's go out there and rock and roll. There's going to be goals flying left, right, and center. We're going to concede 2, but we might score 4. We might concede 4, but we're going to score 3, 4, 5. Or so. I mean, it's all over the place. 12 goals scored, 10 conceded in 6 games. I mean, that is just mad. I think they're after Atalanta, who in total have 23 goals in their games. Lazio have 22. It's absolutely.
No, I'm enjoying watching Lazio. Which
me too. It's fun.
I haven't enjoyed watching Lazio for quite a long time. To be honest. Even when they had that magical midfield, they were just a team that I don't know. I just didn't resonate to. I don't know, but now I really like them. It's kind of. They're really, really.
No, it's rock and roll. It's they give people value for their money when they play teams. It's not, it's entertaining, to put it mildly, and it's again. I mean, they, like I said, 22 goals in 6 games that they played in. But scored 12, conceded 10. Only Atalanta, 1 more goal, have more goal guarantee than Lazio are, and it's interesting. No, it's Lazio. I'm really, 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 really looking forward.
I'm quite confident now. We said we gave our predictions 6 games into the season. I'm pretty confident Lazio now for that 7th place. Like I think now you compare them to kind of like who else could get that final European, automatic European spot. Let's say I think that they are. I think they're my pick now. I mean, they were before the season as well, but now I'm pretty confident about.
I'm just annoyed that the Rome derby isn't until after the new year, because I want to watch this. Like, a Roma that concedes chances, and Lazio that concedes chances but scores lots of goals, and a Roma that scores goals. I mean, that game could be one for the ages. That Rome derby. I mean, anything, like, God knows how that could finish.
No, for sure. And I think it's impressive Bouladia playing this well, having basically not played for a year.
I like Bouladia.
Going on strike for a year. Salernitana. I do as well. I really like him. And he's actually quite adaptable, because he's been playing as a striker, but also playing a little bit deeper as well behind the main guy, Castellanos, who didn't actually play very well in this game. But very, very positive for Lazio. The other Serie A results: Como 3, Verona 2. Great week for Como. 2 wins in a row, 6 goals, created so many chances in these games. And they are, Fabregas is an interesting one. He has a philosophy. He sticks with it, and they play good football. And Patrick Crociani, I mean, what is going on there? He's joint top scorer in Serie A. I mean, what year is this, Nima? Is it 2024? Like, what is going on?
Look, it's funny, isn't it? If you look at the top goal scorers, you've got Pulisic, Thuram, Cotrone, Retegui, and Vlahovic all on 4 goals. You've got Lautaro on 2. You've got Tovan Kvara on 3. Castellanos on 3. Che Adams on 3. Santiago Castro, Bologna 3. Lorenzo Luca 3. Boulaye Dia 3. It's
mad.
Yeah, it's lots of goal scorers. Quite a few.
And Tovan has been playing like 2014 Tovan as well so far this season for Udinese. He's rolling back the years. Very, very interesting. And Empoli 0, Fiorentina 0. Not so interesting.
But that's another thing. Empoli
still unbeaten.
I mean, unbeaten. 2 goals conceded only.
Yeah.
It's mad.
Second best defensive record in Serie A. Yeah.
D'Aversa is doing fantastically. And if you look at his attack, he's got Esposito, Colombo, Pellegri, Solbakken.
We have to praise Empoli as well, because they are one of the few clubs in Serie A that actually play Italians regularly and give young Italians a chance. It's the young Italians that were kind of written off elsewhere as well, like Colombo.
Well, that's
like
what I mean. This is
Esposito.
this is like a Football Manager save from 3-4 years ago. Esposito, Colombo, Pellegri. Like it's just like
Yeah,
and
going along
D'Aversa's
and
got
buying the kind of -10 talents, players that are tipped for big potential. Right. Just before we finish off with Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week, Champions League fixtures this week. We have Leverkusen versus Milan on Tuesday. We actually did a full preview of that game. You can check that out on our YouTube page. Inter against Red Star. On Wednesday, we have Shakhtar Atalanta, Leipzig Juventus, and Liverpool Bologna. And then also in the Europa League, Lazio Nice, Elfsberg Roma. And then we have the beginning of the Conference League. Fiorentina are back playing against TNS. So having played an art academy, Pushkas Academy, they're now playing a furniture store, TNS.
well,
Some of
no,
the teams Fiorentina play in that competition.
They've played a furniture store. They've played an art academy. Now they're playing what essentially sounds like a celebrity gossip column. Like it's just
TMZ,
like the Diggs team. Yeah, the Diggs team of TMZ. I mean, it's just what exciting times in Florence.
Yeah, sure. We discussed about Milan. I mean, Inter, they've got to win that game, and you'd expect them to beat Red Star at home. Atalanta, I mean, that's a good team to play because Shakhtar will be playing a neutral territory. And I watched them against Bologna. They didn't seem to look like they had too much. So Atalanta, you'd think, will go there and win that game. Leipzig Juventus, tough game for Juventus, and Leipzig are unbeaten this season in the Bundesliga. So that's going to be a tough one. And then Bologna, of course, away at Anfield, going to be very, very tough to expect anything but a convincing win for Liverpool. Okay, let's finish off with Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week. So, Baggio. Right, these are, I mean, they're not really Baggios, but I just love them. I mean, the first one was this Glialto Gol. Did you see this video that they did of?
It's hilarious.
Absolute genius. It really is genius. It's kind of an animation of Lele Adani, who is well known in Italy as being a huge critic of Motta. I mean, you compare me to Lele Adani when it comes, not of Motta, of Allegri. A huge critic of Max Allegri is Lele Adani, and you often compare me to him. So they did an animated mock-up of Lele Adani doing an exorcism on Thiago Motta to rid himself of Max Allegri's spirit. You have to watch this, guys. It is genius. It's absolutely genius. It's also quite scary to watch. It's quite disturbing to watch. It's Allegri, Max Allegri, or Thiago Motta kind of tied to a bed, and Adani is the priest, and he's trying to exorcise the spirit of Allegri, and kind of Motta's face is half turning into Allegri during it, and they're trying to get his spirit out, and it's actually quite disturbing to watch, but also just hilarious at the time. I mean, whoever came up with this idea, genius.
They are funny. I love Glialto Gol. I mean, did you see? I mean, it's an Interista, it's a Juventino and a Milanista who just have fun with the Serie A. Did you see their Milan fans after they won the derby? The video they did there, where the Milan fan of the group went into his closet and took out his his Milan jersey that had been dusting, like there's cobwebs on it. He dusted it off and he reactivated on all social media platforms. And they are really funny. They are really, really funny. The songs they do as well. I think they're hilarious. I think they're absolutely hilarious. What they do is brilliant. And the Thiago Motta, when the moon comes out and it's like a werewolf and the spirit of Allegri takes over Thiago Motta. It's just Oh, it's too much.
It was
Too much.
genius. It was absolutely brilliant. The other badger that we got have is Jose Mourinho. I love this.
I love that.
This is
I
the kind of
absolutely love
this
him.
is the kind of thing
I
I would.
love him.
This is the kind of thing I would do. Just so you know, I would do this in a game if I was a manager. This is exactly the kind of thing I would do. So basically, Fenerbahce had a goal kind of controversially disallowed for offside by VAR, and the Fenerbahce team and
So
Mourinho
funny.
seemed to believe that the VAR had made the wrong decision, that it was actually onside. And so what they did is Mourinho, because obviously at games the TV doesn't show, or in the stadium, certainly in the stadium, they don't show kind of referee decisions, do they? Because they don't like to incite the crowd. But what Mourinho did is Mourinho wanted to make a point. So what he did was he placed his laptop in front of the beIN Sports television cameras so that it could be seen on TV, but the actual the offside call to show that it was, according to Mourinho, was incorrect, showing that Edin Dzeko was actually onside in the game. Brilliant. And the referee, they spotted it, and the referee booked Mourinho for it.
I love him. This is I absolutely love him. Like when he does these things, this is vintage Mourinho. Like Mourinho in Turkey is just the best thing that could happen in the world of football. Like because it's prime time. It's just he's crazy. Turkish football is batshit. It's comedy, pure comedy. And of course, Galatasaray, after they won the derby, did you see? I mean, the way that Turkish football is absolutely bonkers. And it's very, very funny. And Mourinho going in there is just too good to be true.
No,
Sheer
their fans
entertainment.
are absolutely insane as well. I know that because I used to live with two Turks, and they are, they are mad. Premface of the week. Michael Richards and Jamie Carragher playing a quiz on CBS where they have to guess which country certain European opponents are from, and the proud ignorance on show was something to behold. That the ignorance of being proud to not know the answer and to get the answer wrong. It was like, as we say, it was like Chris Rock. Never been so proud to not know the answer to your question. I don't know that.
I don't know that shit. Yeah, no.
I've never seen two people so happy about being
being ignorant.
Stupid.
To being stupid and uninformed.
So some of the belters they got. Ferencvaros are from Turkey, apparently. Karabag are from Georgia, and Bodo Glimt.
Why not?
Bodo Glimt are from Finland.
Why not?
And they were laughing hysterically at being wrong.
At being historically stupid.
Stupid. I mean, I just I don't mean to be a snob, but you are. I mean, first of all, I find it incredible that two former professional footballers who will have played all over Europe, would have played in all of these countries. You should know. I mean, they probably would have played against some of these teams. I find that incredible for starters. But secondly, you're getting paid big money to be on CBS, and you're broadcasting European games, Champions League, Europa League, whatever, and you're supposed to do your research at least and know where these teams are from.
You're literally paid to do a job. Do your bloody job properly.
Yeah.
Seriously, be respectful to your audience and take the job seriously. But unfortunately, this is something we see in sports media in particular. It's not about doing a job. It's about, oh, look at me and my mates in front of the camera, and it's very pathetic, really. It's a shame because I think it's insulting to the viewer. I really do.
I'm all for having a bit of fun, and I think that's
having fun is different.
A bit of fun, a
not
bit of jokes, a
and
bit of
being
banter,
professional.
and I think in some senses that is actually quite endearing about CBS. That there is that banter, there is that chemistry, which is good. But this is embarrassing, and also the thing I don't like about CBS is it's just so staged. It's scripted.
Yeah, it does feel, doesn't it?
So much of it is scripted, and it's so obvious. You see so many things happen where it's so they've written out the show. It's just not natural, and that that comes across as disingenuous. It's like you're watching a film or do you know what I mean? It's and this, I mean, to be proud of being wrong, it's just. And by the way, I like Michael Richards. I think he's one.
Yeah,
Of the good,
I think
he's one of
he
the
seems
good
like a
guys. But
lovely person.
this is just embarrassing.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. My I have a Serie Ass and a Baggio of the week, kind of both in one. My Baggio of the week is Romeo Lavia, the Belgian footballer from plays for Chelsea, if I'm not mistaken. And Cole Palmer scored a hat-trick. And
4 goals.
4 goals, yeah, but he scored a hat-trick. Hattie, as Rio Ferdinand would call it, because when you're 45 years old, you talk like that, apparently. Regardless, trying to sound like he's 13. Anyway, he wrote on the match ball that that Cole Palmer got, "You're a mid player regardless," which I think is hilarious. But the Serie Ass of the week is Sport Italia's or Milan Day's Marco Varini, who saw this, posted it, and used Google Translate and wrote, "Lavia on Cole Palmer's ball, you're still just a midfielder." He interpreted, "You're a mid player regardless," as you're just a midfielder. And the comments are just, you can just imagine Italian football Twitter, which is completely unhinged. What they did to this is one of the funniest things I've seen on social media ever.
I love it. It's like it reminds me of the island. The island, was it the under-21 team or was it the under-19 team? They recently had a game against, I can't remember the country now. Was it Latvia? And in the match program before the game, for some reason, the editors, the writers, they in the match program when they were printing out the squad of the opposition team, they used Google Translate to translate their names of the players for some weird reason. And some of the players' names on the match program, so people that went to watch the match, bought the match program, had a look at the team that Ireland were playing, and they had like some of the names were like John the Elder and Peter the Shit, and like it's like this. It was just,
you're a midfielder regardless. It's just hilarious. I died, and it's like that is, to me, that's Serie Ass of the week, and it's like English, not even like bad English. We're talking non-existent English.
That's fantastic. That's great. A more serious Serie Ass of the week, though: Genoa fans who vandalised the shrine to Gianluca Vialli at the Coppa Italia derby. I mean, just what possesses somebody to do something like that? I mean, complete arseholes. That's the second time in a week we've had fans doing this. That it had the Napoli fans that ruined the minute silence for Toto Schillaci during the Napoli Juventus Napoli Juventus shouting out Munezza to him. I mean, just asses. That's where there was a lot of trouble in that game as well, in that Genoa derby, derby between Sampdoria and Genoa. 30 injured, which was really, really horrible to see. Okay, right, let's leave it at that.
Before we go, please do remember to vote for us on the football content awards. You can go for thank you to every one of you who have voted on Instagram, because you can vote for us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, and on their homepage. So it means you can vote, like, everyone can give us 5 votes if they want, because you can only vote once per platform, but you can vote on every platform. We've had lots of votes on Instagram, so please, if you haven't, you need to find the right post where to vote. We've done an article on this. We're going to send out to all our patrons, and it's going to come out some other places too. But thank you so much to everyone who's voted, and please do continue to vote for us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we sure do. Thank you very much. We will see you later. We'll have a Q&A episode, which will come out either Wednesday or Thursday. And then we will be doing some reaction to the Champions League games. We're just working out how we're doing it. But at the moment, as it stands, we're probably going to do a reaction on Wednesday to the Milan and Inter games, and then also Nimra's going to do a follow up to the Thursday to the Wednesday games of Juventus, Bologna, and Atalanta by himself, because I'm actually not going to be around for those Wednesday games. So, but we will cover.
So
all
we're
of
going to
them
do like a full Thursday pod maybe on Wednesday, and then maybe on Wednesday evening we're doing a post-match reaction, and of course the Q&A, and all of that is for patrons. Patrons get all of that on patreon.com/TIFP, $2.99 a month.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks everyone for listening. Have a great week. See you next time. Ciao, ciao.